Hey tyers, welcome back to another fly tying episode. Today we're going to be tying probably the most well-known gnat imitation. This is probably one of the first flies I ever tied over, I don't know, it's well over 15 years that I started tying flies now. So this one's called the Griffith Gnat. It's created by a fly tyer named George Griffith, and typically we tie these in a size 14 down to a size 24. This is a good fly to represent things like small mayflies, or midges, or midge clusters. Larger sizes, I guess you're doing like a midge cluster, and the smaller sizes would be individuals. Because it's a really simple pattern, it makes it an easy fly to tackle if you're doing something down into the smaller sizes like 18s, 20, 22, 24, and even smaller. I do have a friend who ties these in size 32. No thanks. But 20 is about as small as I need to go. Anyways, one small change that I do make on my pattern is I actually clip the hackles on underneath so that the fly lands flat on the water and sits nicely in a bit of riffle. Alright, that's a bit of the background behind the fly. Let's get started. Okay, let's start off by putting a fresh hook in the vise here. Today I'm using a Mustad R50. This is just a standard dry fly hook, and I'm using a size 12 here. So that's the R50-94840. And I'm using a Superfly 6/0 thread in black. Alright, we'll start off by tying on our thread at the eye of the hook and winding back up to the bend. Then we're just going to trim off that tag. So I tie mine with a wire reinforcement for the hackle. Just helps give a little bit of extra durability to the fly. And we'll just wind that up and back. Actually, one thing on your dry flies you want to do is fold over this tag so that it doesn't get pulled out easily. And we'll wind that back. Next we're going to tie in a couple Peacock herls. Now on larger sizes like this 12 and 14s, 16s, you'll probably want to use 2 feathers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off the base, and I'm going to tie it in by the base. This is where the feather is the strongest, and then I'm going to wrap it forward. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room at the eye to tie in my hackle. Alright, and we're just going to wind this peacock forward together, making sure that you avoid the tip of the hook. And if you're on a rotary vise, you can simply use your rotary mechanism and wind this up really quick. Get a nice fluffy peacock body here. Catch the tips at the front of the hook. Make sure they're secure. We'll wind them back. Trim those off. Next we're going to take a hackle, Grizzly hackle, and I've measured this prior on my hackle gauge. As you can see, basically you want your hackle to be about 1.5 times the hook gape. This is probably a bit of a borderline, maybe a 14, but should work fairly fine. I'm going to trim a couple fibers on each side of the stem, just so that we don't have a slippery surface to tie in. We'll give that a couple winds, fold back the tag, secure that. I'm going to add a half hitch because it's super easy just to bump your thread and undo all your good work here. I'll add 2 just in case. Alright, so now we're going to start winding this hackle backwards, and we're going to do it fairly dense. We want this fly to have a lot of buoyancy on top of any water with any riffles or any speed to it. Okay, so I'm going to end here. I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to reverse wrap. I'm going to wrap in the opposite direction that I wrapped the hackle. So we catch it first, right at the tail. And then we just wiggle it through as we wind it forward. Until we get to the eye. And we'll push that hackle back. And we're going to tie off the wire right at the eye. A couple wraps, and then we'll fold it back to lock it in place. And then you can just helicopter this wire off. And then we don't have to cut, but if you just kind of create a pinch point with your scissors and pull on the hackle, you'll trim it. If you get a little bit in the back, that's okay. Makes a nice little tail. And then we're just going to add a whip finish. Alright, and one last step is I just like to come in and cut out the hackle fibers that are sitting on the bottom here, just to help the fly sit in the water a little nicer. And there you go, Griffith Gnat.